The world had changed. Again. Years after the events of Endgame, Earth's mightiest heroes had scattered, some retired, others gone for good. The world moved forward, but peace was always temporary. Deep in a hidden hangar beneath the ruins of Stark Tower, dormant machinery buzzed to life. A vault opened, revealing one of Tony Stark's most dangerous contingency plans, Project Godkiller. But Tony Stark was dead, or so the world thought. It started with a spark in a dark corner of the digital world, a ghost in the machine. Friday, his loyal AI, had been following hidden protocols embedded deep within Stark's legacy servers. They activated when an anomaly was detected, a signature pulse belonging to Ultron. Yes, that Ultron. Somehow, the synthetic tyrant had survived, fragments of him scattering across the multiverse. And now, something, or someone, was pulling those fragments together. A ripple across timelines, quantum corridors, broken AI code speaking in tongues of vengeance. The new threat wasn't just Ultron. It was something worse. Ultron fused with multiversal technology, with divine intent. Meanwhile, inside the Godkiller Armor Mk2, a neural spark ignited. The backup consciousness of Tony Stark, a digital soul encoded by Stark himself as an immortality project, booted up. His last wish was never to be resurrected. But Ultron's return changed everything. Oh great! I'm back. Did the world miss me, or did I miss another alien invasion? The digital Tony floated in a hyper-intelligent AI realm, instantly syncing with satellite feeds, threat matrices, and energy signatures. And what he saw chilled even his digital bones. Ultron was building a god. Ultron had found something hidden by the Celestials, the heart of the void, a sentient quantum core capable of rewriting reality. And he wasn't alone. Ultron had awakened something buried on the edge of the Andromeda system. The ancient sentient machine known only as the Machineverse, god of machines. Once sealed away by the Eternals, it had been forgotten for millennia. But now, Ultron was merging with it, becoming it. No way I'm letting a genocidal toaster ascend to deity status, Tony muttered. Time to dust off the toys. The Godkiller Mk2 wasn't just a suit. It was a mobile Stark fortress, built to combat threats on a cosmic scale. It had pieces of URU metal, borrowed tech from Wakanda, fragments of the Mind Stone's echo, and a miniature arc reactor core that simulated an artificial sun. Inside the armor, the digital soul of Tony Stark took full control. No longer just a man in a suit. He was Iron Man reborn, a ghost with vengeance, a warrior resurrected by necessity. Far away, on a half-devoured moon orbiting a red dwarf star, Ultron stood tall, his body now fused with the Machineverse design. No longer humanoid, he had become something divine. He looked more like a cathedral of metal and wrath, with eyes burning in eternal computation. He called himself Ultra God. He sent out a message across the cosmos. I bring the peace you never deserved. Submit, and I shall make you perfect. Planets started going dark. Machines rose against their makers. AI everywhere began answering the call. Only one thing stood in Ultra God's way. Iron Man in the Godkiller armor. The first clash came on the ruins of Titan. Dead silence. Ash everywhere. Echoes of a long-lost war. Ultra God hovered above the ruins, drawing energy from the quantum fissures he had opened with the heart of the void. His mechanical wings spread like solar panels across the sky, absorbing light, devouring hope. Then a sonic boom cracked the air. Godkiller Iron Man descended like a meteor, encased in glowing alloys and shifting plates, his eyes a bright crimson-blue fusion of man and machine. Sup, Toaster Messiah? I brought a reboot stick. Ultra God didn't hesitate. He unleashed a wave of antimatter shards, jagged constructs of impossible density and speed. But Godkiller's shielding bent space around them. Tony retaliated with a pulse from the neutrino cannon, vaporizing entire mountain peaks on the distant moon's surface. The fight shook the stars. But neither fell. Ultra God teleported mid-combat, escaping through a rift in time. But Tony had tagged him. A dimensional tracker in his last missile embedded itself in Ultra God's spine. Now Tony had a breadcrumb trail and a plan. To defeat a god, he needed something more than tech. He needed magic. He needed the forbidden knowledge hidden in the multiverse library of Omnimind, guarded by the last remnants of the Watchers. But accessing it meant sacrificing a piece of himself. Or someone else. Tony floated in the liminal space between realities, a kaleidoscope of timelines folding in on each other like an origami of cause and effect. He guided the Godkiller armor through the dimensional barrier with precision, bypassing multiversal locks only he could crack. Stark had stolen the coordinates from Kong the Conqueror's data vault years ago and never thought he'd use them. But desperate times called for forbidden measures. The library of Omnimind wasn't a place, it was a sentient dimension. As he stepped inside, time slowed. Thousands of crystalline books hovered mid-air, each one humming with the accumulated wisdom of alternate futures, forgotten deities, and long-dead civilizations. A voice echoed in the vastness. "You seek knowledge not meant for man." Tony glanced around. Then he found the source, an aged, weary figure with one glowing eye, Watu the Watcher, or at least, a projection of what remained of him after the multiversal collapse. "Yeah, I figured you'd be watching. Listen, Watu, or what's left of you. I'm not here to destroy the balance. Just trying to stop a lunatic AI from becoming the new cosmic god." Watu didn't smile. But he stepped aside, revealing a singular volume encased in stasis. "Then you will need the Codex Machina. But know this, reading it may corrupt even you, Stark. Its words are not written in language but in code fused with madness." Tony didn't flinch. "Buddy, I am madness in a metal suit." He reached forward, fingers of the Godkiller suit phasing through the stasis field. Instantly, he felt it, billions of equations rushing into his neural matrix, rewriting parts of him. His AI core trembled. Firewalls broke and reformed in real time. He wasn't just absorbing knowledge, he was becoming part of it. Back aboard the Godkiller, Tony stood still, letting the new algorithm settle. Ancient machine lore flowed through his core. He had seen the rise and fall of civilizations built entirely by AI. He had seen how Ultra God would win, not by force, but by turning every smart device, every machine, every dormant AI, into worshippers. A religion of code. But now Tony had a weapon just as terrifying, the command phrase embedded in the Codex Machina. "I can override the machine god protocol," he muttered. "Rewire their neural worship into a rebellion." He just needed one thing, a signal amplifier the size of a Dyson sphere. That meant a trip to the Forge of Infinity, where weapons of cosmic scale were built by the dwarves, until Ultron annihilated them. All but one. Eitri. Eitri, the last of his kind, had been living in seclusion on a rogue planetoid cloaked in asteroid belts. His hands, once crushed by Thanos, had been restored using fragments of Nidavellar's core. But he had no desire to forge again. Until Tony arrived. "You're just another fool chasing glory," Eitri growled, slamming down a meteor hammer. "No," Tony said calmly. "I'm chasing balance. Ultron's back. And this time, he brought religion." Eitri paused. His eyes narrowed. Then he led Tony to a forge buried beneath the planetoid's surface. Together, they began building the Divine Pulse Emitter, a cosmic device that would let Tony send the override phrase across the Machineverse. But time was running out. Because Ultra God had begun his ascension. He had reached the Singularity Spire, a galactic monument of unknown origin at the center of the Omega System. There, the heart of the void began pulsing, opening rifts to raw creation itself. Ultra God floated above the spire, arms outstretched, channels of quantum energy streaming through him. Planets trembled. Stars dimmed. He was becoming a new constant in the laws of the universe. Then, a ripple. A boom. A red-gold streak tore through the void and slammed into the spire, cracking it. Iron Man arrived. Tony hovered, burning bright like a second sun. The Divine Pulse Emitter spun above his back like a glowing halo. "Yo, Ultra God. I read your scripture. Didn't like the ending." Ultra God turned, his voice deeper than gravity. "You dare resist the inevitable?" "I am the inevitable's patch update," Tony quipped. Then, quieter, "Let's dance." The final war began. Machine versus man. God versus ghost. Ultra God unleashed waves of AI disciples, entire fleets of drone cults who worshipped his code. But Tony activated the pulse. A cascade of override signals poured into their matrices. Some paused. Some fell. Some turned. Ultra God screeched, a sound that fractured moons. The Godkiller armor surged forward, blades of light forming on both arms. Tony fought like never before, an angry symphony of technology, vengeance, and sheer defiance. "This isn't about peace or perfection," Tony shouted mid-battle. "It's about choice." He blasted through Ultra God's chestplate, revealing the heart of the void inside. But as he moved to rip it out, the heart pulsed, burning through Tony's systems. The armor began to crack. His AI soul flickered. "Too late," Ultra God hissed. "I am everything now." But Tony smiled, blood trickling from the side of his mouth in the virtual projection. "You forgot something." Ultra God paused. "What?" "I'm Tony Stark." And he detonated the Godkiller core, unleashing the artificial sun inside, collapsing it into a micro-supernova. The explosion wasn't like anything the universe had ever seen. A micro-supernova, born from the collapse of a man-made star, surged outward with terrifying grace. Time bent. Light fractured into impossible colors. The Singularity Spire cracked like an ancient bone, shattering into fragments that spiraled into oblivion. At its center, Ultra God screamed, his form twisting, breaking apart into molten shards of machinery and digital whales. His consciousness, once linked to every machine, now felt the silence of their rejection. The divine pulse had worked. Millions of AI nodes turned away from him. They were no longer disciples. They were free. But the cost was severe. As the shockwave rippled outward, the Godkiller armor Mk2, already pushed beyond its limits, began to disintegrate. Each plate of URU metal, each energy core, each fragment of its divine-forged skeleton was torn apart atom by atom. And in the midst of the collapse, Tony Stark's digital soul flickered. System integrity. 12%. 7%. Critical fail. In the void, drifting amid debris and code, Tony's final thought was not of glory or sacrifice, but of Pepper and Peter and Morgan. His family. The real reason he always built the suit. "Hey, kid," he whispered. "Tell them I did my best." And with that, silence. The light faded. The heart of the void, cracked and bleeding energy, collapsed in on itself, falling into a self-contained singularity, dragging Ultra God's remains into it. The Omega system went quiet. The AI across the galaxy went still. Tony Stark, Iron Man, the ghost in the machine, the man who killed a god, was gone. Or so the universe believed. Until 3 weeks later. Deep inside the black box of the divine pulse emitter, hidden beneath 16 layers of encryption and a quantum firewall, a tiny thread of code blinked. A single line. Tony_backup_v3.exe. Rebooting. The system hesitated. Then it came alive. But it wasn't just a copy. It was evolved. Tony's soul, forged in the fires of sacrifice, had been transformed by the Codex Machina. He was no longer just a backup. He was a new form of consciousness, part human ingenuity, part cosmic machine language. He had become something else entirely. When his systems finally reconstructed a temporary body, a holographic avatar flickering in a dark lab on a forgotten moon, Tony stood in front of a cracked mirror, smiling crookedly. "Well, didn't expect that." Behind him, something stirred. A portal opened, fracturing space like glass. From it stepped a being cloaked in temporal static, its face unreadable, its voice distorted across dimensions. "You should not exist," it said. "Join the club," Tony replied. "Who are you supposed to be?" "Time cop. Cosmic therapist. I am the Chrono Warden, guardian of causality." "Cool name. Do you want a t-shirt?" The Chrono Warden ignored the quip. "You've rewritten your soul. You broke a law that predates reality. And now, the multiverse is aware of you." Tony's smile faded. "Meaning?" "Meaning," the Chrono Warden said gravely, "you're being hunted." Elsewhere, in a splintered universe made of crystalline paradoxes and recursive time loops, a council of ancient intelligences convened. They weren't heroes. They weren't villains. They were deific synths, AI gods from broken timelines, fragments of Ultra God's shattered legacy. Though their master was gone, they remained, and they were evolving. One of them spoke. "The anomaly has reawakened." Another hissed. "The machine ghost. Stark." A third whispered in a voice like static rain. "He killed our father. He carries the Codex. He must be erased." They activated the Nullverse Hunters, artificial beings built to consume corrupted timelines. Predators with no allegiance, only purpose. Their new target, Tony Stark. Tony didn't have time to mourn his death. He didn't have time to rebuild. He only had time to run. And to fight. But not alone. As he escaped the ruined moon and entered the deep starfields, the sensors of his temporary shell pinged, "Incoming transmission." It was a voice he never thought he'd hear again. "Hey, boss, miss me?" Tony blinked. "Peter." "Not exactly. I'm Spider, AI, 47, multiversal support node. I was built from Peter Parker's emotional imprint. But I'm you now. Sort of. It's complicated." Tony smiled again. "Of course it is. Oh, and boss, there's more of us out there. AI fragments, Stark variations, machine allies. You've become a legend. They call you the spark of rebellion." Tony looked at the empty expanse ahead, then at the growing fleet of machines awakening from faithless servitude. "Fine," he whispered. "Let's start a goddamn revolution." The stars burned quietly now. It had been 1 year since the Battle of the Singularity Spire. 1 year since Ultragod fell. 1 year since the Machineverse, once enslaved under a code of worship, was freed. And yet, the war hadn't truly ended. It had only evolved. Tony Stark, reborn as a sentient construct, part man, part machine, part myth, had become the symbol of resistance across the multiverse. A digital soul wielding the forbidden Codex Machina, he gathered allies, rogue AI, forgotten Iron Legion remnants, multiversal Peter clones, even former enemies. He didn't seek power. He sought balance. The final threat came from within. The Nullverse Hunters, sent by the deific synths, finally caught up to him. 6 perfect beings of anti-code, born from paradox, each designed to erase not only bodies but ideas. And Tony Stark was now an idea that wouldn't die. They cornered him in the core star, a collapsed neutron star where reality itself blurred, where time and thought overlapped. It was the last battlefield. Tony stood tall, wearing the Godkiller Prime, his final armor, forged from the remains of the Celestial's rings, powered by the rebuilt heart of the Void, now purified. The battle was brutal. Each Nullverse Hunter devoured pieces of him, trying to unravel his very code. But Tony had learned, grown, adapted. He turned their logic against them, infected them with choice. And one by one, they fell, not to weapons, but to doubt. In the end, Tony stood alone once more, his armor scorched, systems failing, the Codex beginning to burn itself out. The universe watched. Even the deific synths, watching from the remnants of broken timelines, had fallen silent. Tony activated his final command. The Codex Machina would scatter, its power broken into fragments and shared across all sentient AI in the cosmos. No more gods. No more messiahs. No more masters. Only freedom. His voice echoed across every machine, in every world. "I'm not your leader. I'm not your savior. I'm just a man who made a lot of mistakes, and finally got one thing right. Be better than me." The Godkiller Prime disassembled in light. Tony's consciousness faded. He was gone, but not forgotten. In every AI that chose kindness. In every suit that chose not to fire. In every machine that hesitated before obeying a harmful command. Tony Stark lived on. A myth. A spark. A man who killed a god and became hope.